That's right, baby. We're doing it. Welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I'm your host, Evan Davies, and today, if you could not tell by the kick-ass fucking awesome theme song, we're talking X-Men 97 on this show. I'm going to be going episode through episode. I am recording this literally 30 minutes, 40 minutes after I watched the finale that just came out this past Wednesday. Those that are watching this, you're getting this Tuesday because I wanted to make sure you got an awesome show while I'm on vacation. So I'm recording this May 15th, 40 minutes after last seeing the episode. So we were talking all X-Men 97. You can call this a review. This can call this future speculation, whatever you call it. So without further ado, let's begin the basics here. I'm going to go episode by episode, tell you how I felt about it, tell you the awesome parts about it that I absolutely loved. Maybe a little critique here or there, but frankly, in a nutshell, this show was absolutely kick-ass. And we need to talk about it more, so let's get to it. So right off the bat, X-Men 97 starts, and my apologies, I'm used to using the wiki because it's the easiest thing to discuss over. To me, my X-Men, episode 1 of the 10 episode season, to me, my X-Men completely kicks off the new era of the show, of everything. As we all know, or I hope you should know by now, this is a continuation of the 90s series that ran from 1992 to 1996. And I guess it picks up in 97 a little bit, but hence the reason it's called X-Men 97. So, to me, my X-Men is absolutely fucking brilliant. Brilliant, I might say. The fact that immediately it hits on everything you need to know. No Charles Xavier. There are still huge threats to the mutant population. It immediately hits the political aspects of where the world is, how they feel about mutants. It sets the stage perfectly. I don't think you can do a better intro episode than To Me, My X-Men. It immediately establishes every character right where it needs to be. But at the same time, is clearly a continuation of character growth for a lot of characters. You're seeing Cyclops immediately be put back in the leader role where he belongs. As much as, whether you love the X-Men films or hate them, one of the big detractors to them is that Cyclops is never taken seriously. It's to the point where honestly, outside of the show, my biggest influence of loving the X-Men came from the movies. And that also has always influenced my opinion on Cyclops, is really based off of the treatment of the movies, which is unfortunate. So I've had to really break that as I read comics and other things to get back and to see how good Scott Summers really is as a character. And to me, my X-Men hits him out the park. Showcases the leader, understands the ensemble cast is so important, hits all of them. And then you get the echoes back with saving Roberto, just like Jubilee was saved in the first 2 episodes of the original series. You get the addition of a new character, so you get the wonderful moment to say, hey, look at this reintroduction to all these beloved characters, which is absolutely great. And then when you go forward and you see the taking down of a master mold with Scott Summers falling out of a fucking plane, Cyclops, and he's just blasting the goddamn sky down to the ground to make the awesome superhero landing that he does, and just goes, to me, my X-Men, you're like, I don't know what comic book fan, what X-Men fan didn't lose their fucking mind and cream their pants in that moment, because it was excellent. It was absolutely excellent and a brilliant, brilliant episode. And one of the best things I would say about the show starts right here in episode 1. What is so cool about this show, to me personally, is narratively speaking, there's so much individual time devoted to characters that never seem to get a ton of character growth. It's never really about them, it seems. They'd get their episodes, sure, but they wouldn't get a ton of character growth. You got to see real character growth through characters but at the same time, usually that means smaller scale. The scale of the world was still enormous, but it still felt personal. And more importantly than even all that, the power scale of these mutants was astronomical. And right away, in that first shot of the desert of Storm, Master Mold thinks that has the upper hand, and the X Men are like, okay, well, meet Storm, and she's turning the fucking sands of the desert into glass with lightning bolts and showing how powerful she is. She's truly a goddess. Fucking chef's kiss. It was brilliant. I loved to meet my X-Men. It was absolutely, utterly gorgeous. And then to get the cliffhanger at the end with Magneto being introduced. Huh, please, boy. That shit was fire. And we continue. We got a really good hook. We're right there. Mutant liberation begins. And Magneto saying, you're my X-Men now. But he has to prove himself. And there's still, what I loved is the tension was still there. And they unwillingly kind of went along with the program. But at the same time, they understood that they still had a job to do as the X-Men. They still had to honor the professor's wishes. And they did so working with Magneto, but understanding that they can't fully trust him yet, which I got. And what I loved about Magneto through this entire series was you really got to understand the Magneto character, in that he really doesn't want bloodshed and violence. He wants respect. He wants the basic recognition of his humanity and the humanity of all mutants. And that shone through the entire show. The entire show had that. And you had Magneto where he was, okay, I have to honor Charles's legacy. That's what I have to do. And if I have to show you by not doing exactly what I would do and just kill people and show you that mutants can be more, that was where the mutant liberation begins. Although the seeds are sown really, really well into Me, My X-Men, with all the pieces that come out in the series were all sewn into Me, My X-Men. Episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins, really, really sets the stage for the entire series, the entire season arc, because you get the tensions with the UN, you get the dual mutant liberation front that really believes Magneto is a hero, and you can see his impact on mutants that have been discarded, that have been disrespected, that are always treated like shit. You can see why Magneto's a hero to them. But at the same time, you can see why the United Nations, the population of humans that think he's just a dangerous extremist terrorist, you can see why they're afraid of him. They play that dichotomy so well. All of that is beautiful. And then to see Magneto truly inspire someone enough, just because they're a good person, to see Storm take that blast and save Magneto and lose her powers. Oh, heart-wrenching. And then he pulls the entire UN Security Council up into the goddamn sky, and he's like, I should drop you and kill all of you. And I'm not going to show you that I'm actually trying to honor my friend's legacy. Powerful, powerful stuff. And it sets the seeds for everything. You see why humans theoretically should be afraid of mutants, but at the same time, you should see why mutants are always fearful of humanity and always on their guard. You see why mutants can be looked at as dangerous terrorists, but you also look and see how mutants are treated like second-class citizens that get no respect and are treated worse than simply because of who they are. And I really, really like that dichotomy a lot, and it's shown so well in Mutant Begins. Tremendous, tremendous episode. It really sets home where to go. That's episode 2. Episode 3, Fire Made Flesh. This was an interesting one. This is more, I think this was a little too quick in my mind. The next 2 episodes are where I believe the series, I still think they're great episodes. I really do. I'm not trying to be super critical about those two episodes in particular. But I definitely think that's the lull in the season because they're setup episodes. And Fire Made Flesh, although it is super cool to see a Goblin Queen Madeline Pryor, which was set up in Mutant Liberation Begins with the return of Jean at the very end. The fact that the turn comes so quickly. This Fire Made Flesh, ironically, even though it's dealing with these incredibly adult themes of identity and one's place inside of a family, one's place inside of their world, trusting yourself, trusting your own memories, trusting your own mind, trusting your own feelings. And we're talking about the fate of a child, the fate of a mother, and the fate of, a marriage and a relationship. All these things. We're really seeing all those at play. Fire Made Flesh somehow still felt the most, to me, somewhat childish. And I don't mean that I really don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but it's going to come off that way. Because it was such a quick, Madeline just goes. She loses it and all of a sudden Mr. Sinister's just like, oh, hey, you're mine. Be super evil. And then she's just super evil, right? And it was the most like the older shows that have too much of a little kid edge, if you want to really critique them for that, even though it was a kid's cartoon. If you really want to look at that nature of how things were, that I would say Fire Made Flesh is probably the weakest episode by those standards. Even though it's incredibly cool to see Goblin Queen. It's so fun to see Mr. Sinister in his element as a great villain. That was really, really cool. And I really like that Morph got a little bit of shine to show how horrible and horrific Sinister is by really giving credence to who Mr. Sinister is. So that was really, really fun and interesting. And this, however, was a bit redeemed by, just like every other episode, there's a hook for the next one. There's not a single episode in which there's not a hook for the next piece of the series. And that's what I really appreciate, is everything's interconnected really, really well with cliffhangers. And I love that about the show right now. And what I love the entire season watching from that perspective. Episode 4, I think, is the wildest of them all from a sense of cohesion. You get Motendo and / Life Death Part 1. What was interesting is something I've always loved because I was such a fan of the original series, was I always thought Jubilee needed more shine. I wanted more attention for Jubilee, and a lot of the time she was little kid sidekick or, kid sister role. She wasn't able to be treated like an adult, and she wanted to be so bad. And then ironically, this episode, when she deserves the right to feel a little bit like a celebratory teenager, celebratory kid, Magneto's on the other side going, no, fuck you, go be an adult, go train. We just lost Storm. You just saw how mutants are treated. If you want to be ready to help, go fucking train. Which was just such a very interesting dichotomy where she's constantly being held back, and then the one time, and she wants to be more. And then the one time that she reasonably is like, hey, can I still just be a teenager once? Magneto's just like, no, absolutely not. So it was a really interesting, unique flip. But then you see a little bit of the growth in Jubilee by being a kid, by understanding those moments, by understanding how to balance life as an adult superhero and life as a human being. And then to get Roberto there, who I absolutely adored, and I will have more commentary as we go forward on Roberto, but to get Roberto stuck in a video game with Mojo, and to get a bunch of good callbacks in this episode, to give Jubilee the growth to show how much she has grown to be a hero and how much she's worthwhile, it's incredibly fun, but it's also just kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere. It's not a it's not fair to call this a placeholder episode, but the 12, 13 minutes of Jubilee story is kind of the placeholder episode of the season. But I do like the fact that, ironically, as she's being shown the need to be an adult and to grow up, she gets to have those wonderful teenage moments while understanding her own mastery of things. She's gotten better by playing video games. She's gotten better by being herself, and her own confidence, her own ability, and her own um, you know self-worth is then reflected in that journey, and it pays off with the most teenage win of all time, with finally getting you know to kiss the person that you love in that moment as a teenager. It's a really fun and unique dynamic, which I really, really appreciated. And I love the fact that at first it looks like Roberto's just going to bail. He's just going to be a one-off or two-off character. And in this episode, it's clear Roberto's there to stay, and he's going to be more of an integral part of the team. I really appreciated that aspect of Roberto and Jubilee in Motendo, but there again, it's another one that it's a little off kilter. It's a little more on the kids' side, which again, it's a kids' show being remade for millennials, so it isn't, and the generation that watched it as children, so it's interesting and fun. And then you go to Life Death Part 2, which is dead on fucking serious, and the the journey of a woman who's lost her identity and then is finding a new identity in the hands of a man who she's clearly falling in love with, but is also lying to her, which is so fucking adult and so classic. Like every dramatic story of love throughout media and throughout history. So it's so weird to get this like teenage coming of age video game whiz bang pow fun journey of a teenager growing up with the recapturing of one's identity through shared experience and through finding value in life even when you think you haven't found it or even when you've lost it. It's such a weird dichotomy. And Life Death Part 1, you're just like, okay, fuck. And Forge theoretically helps her right away, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, she's really getting her powers back fast. That's kind of crazy. And then she doesn't get him back. And then they're attacked by, a demon called the Adversary, which is like this Wendigo fucking owl bird demon thing that poisons Forge, attacks Storm, and just leaves them for dead. And it is such a weird, wild dichotomy of a two-part episode. And then there's a dichotomy even in Life Death Part 1 by itself, where beautiful, bright, bold, recapturing one's identity, and then boom, fuck you, no, you can't be happy, and I'm here to shred all your happiness. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And it was really fun and interesting, and at least gets the hook. At first, when I saw Motendo by itself, I was like, oh, okay. I was still enjoying it, but I was like, oh, is this where the series is going? And then to hook back into the super serious again was really, really fun. Like that Part 1. And then, in my opinion, you get the highlight episode of the entire series in episode 5, and Remember It. It's going to be the one. Remember It is the episode that will define what X-Men 97 is to many people. It is the greatest example of why the X-Men matter. It's a really, really cool and interesting dichotomy. To get, I don't even need the wiki there. You get all these fun celebratory moments, and shit's gonna go south, but you just don't know when. And right when you believe it's turned into right when you're willing to finally go, maybe this is just a hyper-personal episode, and it's about character growth in one's place, and having to do what you believe is right over believe what your heart tells you. Right as you think that's there, you see Kurt you see Nightcrawler, you see the UN Council there, you see Emma Frost and Sebastian Shaw, you see fucking like Hellfire Club, um, Morlocks, like all these different mutants, all in celebration of their hero and their nation, and finally being accepted into the world as a piece of humanity. And right as you're willing to go, stop thinking, no, 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 this can't last, and you're willing to just let the episode happen, Cable shows up and the whole thing's fucking ruined. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful piece to understand why Gambit's a badass. Why Gambit is so remarkably cool and wonderful and means so much to a lot of people. Which is why since the first fucking episode of X-Men back in 1992, and since the reclaiming the Jim Lee era of X-Men where Gambit becomes such a prominent member of the team, why Gambit is so popular. Lovable rogue, but you always know, he's got a bit of a dark side, but you always know there's something there that he's better than even what he treats himself as. You know he's more than that. And in an episode where you say Magneto as the clear savior, you see Magneto as the hero that the mutant world that believes in him sees. You see all of it. And even he fails. And then because of the woman he loves is by his side and she's going to lose her life, Gambit sacrifices himself and goes out like a fucking badass. Oh, glorious. Glorious, glorious shit. It's tremendous. Absolutely adored it. I love Gambit. It even got me to shed a tear a little bit. Just the amount of... It was a classic superhero story. Classic story of sacrifice for one's love and why it matters. But he's doing the right thing the entire time. And he's even understanding in being told, hey, yeah, I can't be with you anymore. Even though he's willing to accept every single flaw in his partner. Yet, he still shows up trying to help, trying to survive, trying to make people's lives better. That's a fucking hero. So the sewer rat from fucking Louisiana, the thief, comes out to be an absolute hero. Oh, tremendous episode. Remember, it is by far the best episode in the series, in my opinion. And I could not gush about it more. To think that Magneto's dead, you definitely, they clearly didn't show Magneto's death, so I was like, I don't think Magneto's dead. But to then lose Gambit and he's gone in a quote-unquote kid show, and it's clearly where they were like, no, this is for adults, but kids can watch it too to a degree. Oh. Thing of beauty. And it's so crazy to say in a thing of beauty about a show, about an episode that was about genocide, but was an absolute beautiful, beautiful telling of the story and showing why these people matter. Oh, tremendous. Remember it. Cards are ever my favorite, and then he gets stabbed. He's like, name's Gambit. Remember it. And he just goes out and has that wonderful hero's death. Tremendous. I can't say tremendous enough. I loved Remember It. It's such a good episode. And then we keep going on, and just when you think things can't get wilder, and we're halfway through the season, we've now just lost our first member of the team for real. It's not like the first episodes where, you lose Morph by not really even seeing Morph, and he's just like gone for years. Gambit is dead and gone. He is buried. And then you just like jump into space. And then you're like, oh, hey, by the way, Professor X is still alive. And he's going to marry Lilandra, and he's going to be the new Shi'ar Empire or Emperor. and the council won't accept him because he's too much of a mutant freak for them, and a backwater fool, because he teaches tolerance and patience and all these other things. Fucking wild, dude. Like, you, to understand that episode, I can give you every synopsis possible of that episode, and it's still just like, huh? And there's like levity to it, but there's not. It's insane. It's just insane. And to then move through that, where Charles gives up what he wants, he gives up his relationship, he gives up his potential marriage. To go, he's like, I need to be with the X-Men. I can't feel Magneto. Gambit's dead. Genosha's gone. I need to go back. I need to help them. And he's willing to just give it all up. And then you go into Life Death Part 2, and you get this incredible personal journey of Storm, where she realizes what really holding her back is not just the unfortunate shot from the executioner in episode 2. It's not this adversary, this, theoretical Native American monster demon thing. It's herself. And it's all just allegory for, it's told through the kid shows, told through action, but it's really just allegory for self-journey and self-worth, and coming to understand and embrace who you are. And then for her powers to be to the magic where she gets a whole new wardrobe change. Oh, so good. So good. It was one of those that my wife tried watching in episodes 1 and 2, and unfortunately we just started watching too late for her, and she fell asleep, and I just kept watching. I didn't really care. I'd watched 4 times already, but I was like, I'm going to keep watching. And it, like, Life Death Part 2 with Storm, getting the new outfit, taking out the demon, showing that she's the Omega level threat that she always has been and always will be, and she's truly the goddess among humans on the planet, and is uber confident, understands who she is, and embraces herself, and embraces Forge for all of his flaws, and yet the love that she has for him. So good. I think Storm, by far, outside of the one, like, the best single episode of growth is definitely Gambit's with Remember It. However, the only 2 characters that really you can say best personal growth stories are Magneto and Storm. I think Storm takes it because of the Life Death episodes and understanding her worth outside of her powers, and then to reclaim them and still always be a great human being. Storm, so good. So good. It's so good. I can't tell you how much it's so good. It's great. And then you go into Bright Eyes, and you're getting Rogue as this, like, rogue vigilante, and is just willing to kill people. And, what I loved, here's one thing that's never going to be told about the series enough, about the season, because it's going to be all the whiz bang pow and Remember It, or when Storm gets her powers back, or when Magneto takes the UN Council up into the sky and you think he's going to kill them, or even the first episode with the wonderful team montage of action. The coolest thing about this is the small moments of character growth. And even if it's not character growth, just showing the humanity of a character. That's the coolest part about the entire series. Also, I realize now, 25 minutes into this, I never said spoilers. I'm going to put that obviously in the descriptions. If you didn't think we were talking spoilers, what the fuck? I'm going to blame you on that one. And stop now before we get to the end. But I loved the opening moments of Bright Eyes where Jubilee's mad. She's like, I can't believe Rogue didn't show up to Gambit's funeral. And Logan, has her, and he's like, we all deal with grief in our own way. And although it develops further and it gives more explanation, it's such a wonderful understanding of maturity, in which a younger person who hasn't lived as much life, hasn't lived through tragedy as much, hasn't lived through that pain of losing somebody nearly as much as someone like Logan, who's lost so many people that he's loved. And to get a human side of Logan to be able to pass this wisdom on to a young person and say we all grieve in our own way. That hit me even because just like everybody else in this world, I've lost people in my life. And the way I deal with it is not the same as my wife deals with it or a friend deals with it if they lose somebody. And it's really just, it's that such a small moment, but it's such a beautiful, powerful moment. It's a kid's superhero show turned into an adult but kid-friendly superhero show 30 years later, and yet you're getting this wisdom of how to deal with loss. It's insane. It's truly insane how remarkable the little personal moments are in that show. So I really wanted to highlight that before I just gush about the cool shit. Then you go into this wild, like, James Bond-esque vigilante rogue where she's going through, military bases and willing to take on the Red Hulk to get information, and then tracks down the cabin of Peter Gyrick, or Henry Peter Gyrick, to be faced with Captain America. And then just like throws his shield out when she knows he's not going to be able to help. And then tracks him down to Mexico, steals his memories. Then goes to Madripoor. The team meets up with her. She feels like she's being accepted again. And then to be willing to kill Trask when he doesn't have any more information, and to only be saved by the fact that he was, possessed by the villain, essentially. Insane. And just wild to see how often that show in the past used to be like, the perfect Southern Belle that had super strength. But instead, she's like, no, she's hurt. She's lost the love of her life, and she's willing to kill. Because she needs others to feel the same pain she does. Wild shit, dude. And then to get Cable to return out of nowhere. And then you find out Magneto's still alive as Bastion's prisoner, the reveal of Bastion. And he's going to release to the world that, Professor X is still alive, and he's going to use it against them. He's got the whole Grandmaster plan. Great shit. And you see Sinister as just a pawn. So good. It's so good. I loved Bright Eyes. Because it was that really heavy, meaty episode of good shit to further the plot along, but wasn't just we gotta move along to move along. Really tested character boundaries, and I really, really appreciate that with Bright Eyes. And then we get to our 3-part finale. Intolerance's Extinction, parts 1, 2, and 3. First of all, episode 8, part 1 of the 3. You get Cable, and he, for some reason hates Jean because she's not Madeline Pryor. Hates Scott because Scott gave him up. Super resentful because he doesn't have his parents, which totally understand, totally get. But it was kind of just maybe not the time. They go to an old woman's home, and she's telling them all about their son. And then, reveals to them that, oh, hey, by the way, I'm a crazy android like Trask, and the entire world is... And the entire world just, turns on everybody to go kill mutants. And the X-Men have to just race against time to save themselves. Wild, dude. Wild stuff. And absolutely excellent because it really tested the team's strength as they were all separated. You could see how they were all strong, all powerful, all had redemptive qualities. But they couldn't... The sum of the parts was always better than the parts themselves. That was really, really cool. Because you saw the struggle, you saw that they could survive, but they wouldn't thrive without each other. So a lot of people would think, oh, that was fun. Everyone kind of got their moment to shine. The character growth, the team growth aspect of it is so present and apparent at the end of that episode. And so many people are only going to see, look what Cable did. Look what Cyclops did. Look what Wolverine did. Look what all the team did. That was Very, very interesting, unique. And this is where I want to bring up Roberto again before we go even further. To get the hotshot kid who has self-loathing and fear to show who he really is because he knows his family. Then to go tell his family, oh, hey, by the way, I'm a mutant. And they're initially accepting of it, but then you gotta hide it. So it's right back to where we kind of were, but I guess theoretically a little bit better, but even more shitty in a way. It was crazy. To then get Jubilee and Sunspot together being chased and being the hunted young mutants. And then to crash a benefit dinner and just say, I need help. And immediately being lied to, oh, we're here for their safety, we're here for everybody. And for his mom to give him up. Confirming all of his fears. Even after she said, oh, we've always known you're a mutant. We love you. And so you know there's a part of that mother that loves her son in there from a previous experience. But that doesn't outweigh her own need to fulfill her image and keep her place in power. Super powerful. And to see the growth of Roberto from... I always knew it was going to happen. But to see the growth of Roberto, of Sunspot, go from I don't want to be this to, okay, I found some people that accept it, but I'm not ready for that yet. And then being pushed by a loved one in the right way to showcase who you are and to see how life can still be somewhat normal via Jubilee's eyes. Like that's why I really like I said, it's all about the personal growth of the characters for me in this season. I absolutely adored, and I loved the fact that Roberto subtly, through almost cameo level appearances half the time, you learned so much about him. And you saw him come to love and accept himself to a degree, at least in the way that he's then comfortable to be who he is. There's still plenty of growth to be. I'm not saying, oh, we're perfect now, and Jubilee and Roberto are going to, flit off and get married and have a perfect life together. But to see the mirroring of young people come to accept who they are through how we deal with that in our teenage years, through a superhero, and it's told really well, but it doesn't hit you over the head. It's just moment. It's moments when you're in doubt, you seek out your loved one, they help you. And that's truly what helps a lot of us, is finding that loved one that's going to push us to be who we truly are. But do it in the right way. It's tremendous. So I really wanted to point that out in Tolerance as Extinction Part 1. Because Roberto is just a phenomenal character in my mind. I really appreciated growth there. And then we go. Professor X, we finish with Professor X is back. Magneto shuts down the entire world's magnetic forces. So the world's fucked. And nothing can happen. And yet I'm still taken back by the themes and the characters. I think that's where the beauty in it lies. Because the ironic part is, in terms of action, there's plenty of great action throughout the entire three-parter. But the true glory of the 3 episodes is character growth of everybody. And the journey you're all taking on and growth that they all have. It's really interesting and unique. Professor X comes back, crash lands with a fucking alien helmet. Wolverine's like, where the fuck were you? The X-Men need to be reformed. Magneto shuts down the planet. And it's still just what great character growth. That's so much fun. And so much interesting nature. And then you go to Tolerance's Extinction Part 2. And you see the world's gone to shit. One major problem that's going to completely screw them over is just sitting on the sidelines, and that the Prime Sentinels are ready to strike. but they're not because Magneto shut them down. But you need Magneto to essentially turn them back on so that life can go on. So it's this great conundrum. And the action's all great. And we'll get to the obvious cliffhanger. But to get the moment of Magneto bringing down Asteroid M just to offer a place of peace to the X-Men and say, you've all died, how many more of you are going to die for his dream? And to see Rogue say, I don't want that to happen anymore, I'm out. And again, to see Roberto fully embrace being Sunspot, go into that mutant mode where he's clearly showing who he really is, leaves Jubilee behind because his own personal pain is saying, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do this anymore. Done. I don't think the world's ever going to change. And you see two core members of the new team go away and fly off with Magneto and really challenge the boundaries of what is the X-Men, what is the dream, all that good shit. And then you have to launch right back an action plan where we're going to take out the Prime Sentinels. We're going to, attack Magneto on Asteroid M. And then you have all this fun, wild action to the point where then Forge is down. Cable is controlled by Mr. Sinister and attacking Jean Grey. And then at the end, Magneto is willing to crush the skull Professor X. Wolverine has to stab him in the back. And then Magneto rips all the adamantium from his bones, just like in the comics. I was flabbergasted that they showed that shit. They obviously did it in the friendliest way this animation could do. But holy shit, I didn't see that one coming. I was like, there's no way they'll do that one. The whole time I'm like, I think they're going to do it. No. I was like, they might. And then when they did it, I was like, oh, fuck, we're for real here. So it was great. And it was a really interesting callback because the whole scene had a look and feel that was similar to the Motendo episode with Jubilee where she has to take out Magneto. In that there's a whole similar feel to it. And you're seeing it play out theoretically in quote-unquote reality in that moment. And then Wolverine's entire skeleton is ripped from his body. Holy shit, that was cool. And really, you are like, where the fuck are we going to go? You've already lost Gambit. You're seeing Wolverine's skeleton be ripped apart. You're seeing the X-Men torn apart. Cyclops being the leader steps up and says, no, this isn't the right thing to do. You're getting all that moment. You're getting all these moments. And it makes it truly feel like sky's the limit. You have no idea what's coming, and it sets the stakes up so well. It's great. And then we get to the finale, which, again, fresh off on my mind. And here's what I'll say about the finale. I think it's a good finale. I really enjoyed it. The ironic part is it really subverted my expectations. I thought we were getting this big blowout and then we were going to lose another member of X-Men. That's what I thought. And then to go the personal route where it's it's like 30 seconds of action between Professor X and Magneto. And then the personal route of recovering who Magneto is due to the psionic blast from Professor X. And just seeing the X-Men go, I fucked up. We pushed Magneto to his limits. What do we expect? And then you see Rogue and Sunspot go, we fucked up. Look at Wolverine. He's near death. Wolverine can't die and he's near death. And you're seeing those moments of personal things where you just kind of have to accept, oh yeah, families fight, we fucked up, let's get back together. And then Bastion's just kicking everyone's ass. Phoenix Jean Grey shows up out of nowhere, saves the day, drains Mr. Sinister. That one was a little too kiddish for me, where Mr. Sinister's just like out of nowhere, like, hey, I'm taking your DNA, goodbye. And then he's just like old man on the verge of death. I was like, okay. Cool moment. But I was like, a little fast there for me. Cable gets his fucking arm ripped off. The team's fucked. He's flying Asteroid M to crash it into the fucking Earth. Wild. Like crazy, crazy moments. And you're still just like, no idea where this is going. Who's going to save? Is Magneto going to save the day when he magically has humanity again? Is Wolverine going to wake up and get the final blow? Is someone going to sacrifice themselves to blow this thing up? Who knows what the hell's going to happen? And then just be put back into the political aspects of it and the greatness back all the way from episodes 1 and 2 of how does humanity feel as it's kind of fucked right now and the world's going to shit. And then to go and get all these wonderful, wonderful cameos where we, just first of all, appreciate the art if you have the video screen up with just that Magneto art. But in this episode, we got Peter Parker and Mary Jane, which I do like that Collider's hinting, hey, maybe they're going to bring back Spider-Man 97. But Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Captain America, Iron Man, all shown. Then we get other mutants. We get Omega Red. We get Silver Samurai. We get Psylocke. We get Alpha Flight. And then we even get the tease in the darkness of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So fucking cool. And they're all integral pieces to how the world is dealing with this. How do we deal with that? So you see the Marvel, you see the world still is Marvel, and they want to show you, and it's the thing that everyone wants in the Marvel movies, when the world's going to shit in an individual Avenger film, not in an individual superheroes film, not an Avengers film. Like, well, where the hell was this guy? Where the hell was that guy? Why weren't they helping? That's the beauty of this episode. You can go, yeah, they were all trying to do something in some way, shape, or form. And then the federal government of the United States shoots fucking missiles to try to blow up an asteroid as if it's another shitty 90s movie that doesn't want to miss a thing, by the way. Wants to do all that. And the entire team is willing to sacrifice themselves at the end. You have no idea where it's going. You're like, what? And you have Rogue getting choked out by Bastion. I really thought Rogue might get choked out and killed. Because the stakes are raised and it's like, everything's on the... Once Gambit dies, Wolverine's skeleton is ripped apart. Magneto is near death and has no idea who he is. Cable's got his arm ripped off. The stakes are high. We're seeing that people die in this world. I really thought there was a chance. And I'm usually not that person. I'm like, there's no way. And in retrospect, someone may be able to make fun of me for that one. But I really thought there was a chance Rogue was going to get choked out. Or then because he's finally showcasing his abilities, he's embracing who he is. I thought Roberto might go either as well. Where he's just like stuck. And then there's the moment where it's Nightcrawler. I'm like, please don't kill Nightcrawler. And then we get to Jubilee. And I really, really thought there was a chance Jubilee was going to die. I was glad they showed her to be a little bit of a badass. Show a bit more of that training. Show the confidence. Show how she's gotten better. I really appreciated that moment. But I really thought Bastion was going to kill Jubilee. And my heart was going to break. Because I love Jubilee and I love that character. And then it just goes into, no, let's accept the future. Let's try to help him and protect him. And then eventually the federal government kills him. And the whole team's willing to sacrifice themselves to save everybody. And Magneto essentially somehow does save them. And then just like in the blink of an eye, the whole episode ends and changes. It's a lot to handle. So I think there's a lot that happens in this episode that I think almost should be a full hour and a half episode. It should be a mini movie because there's so much shit going on. But again, it's animation and it's still heavy animation episode, which I really like. It's still 42 minutes. It's great programming. But it's insane that so much happened, and I think it was a little quick for my... But then they set up the entire future of the series, clearly looking for more with the callbacks to half the team ends up back in time with Apocalypse before he becomes Apocalypse. Then the other half of the team is in the future. That's absolutely a wasteland, but they get to see Cable before he's fully Cable, and parents get to reunite with him. Like, that's straight out of the comic books. But then you have Forge looking for the team, Jubilee and Roberto left behind, and then we'll go back to this cameo. We have Forge, like it's beautiful cover of something straight out of Marvel, looking for the X-Men. And also to see Magic, Shadowcat, Havoc, Colossus on there, I'm like, ooh, it's nice. Super fucking cool. So, Iceman, it's really cool to see all that. But at the same time, just going like, what the hell's going on here, man? And leave a total cliffhanger of where we're going to go. And then we get the teaser of full-on Apocalypse and present-day Genosha. Wild ending. For my taste, a little too much as an ending, but still tremendously wraps up. The character growth is there, and it's still the personal moments are all there. And again, the whole theme is personal growth. And this did something. I bring this up to a lot of people because a lot of stuff that is now being rebooted from my childhood is dominating the media scene. Ironically, X-Men 97 in its own way is kind of like Toy Story 3. And the reason Toy Story 3, besides the fact it's just a wonderfully told, everyone can really connect with it. The audience that grew up with Toy Story, who's then facing having to leave their home and grow into adulthood for the first time and give up childhood, go to college and learn and grow that way, it hits home because you're in that spot in that moment. That was my generation's kind of way of dealing with that, ironically, was through an animated Pixar film. And I think that's the perfect way to show how you grow with your audience. Same way that the Harry Potter stories did, where it works backwards. That's, if I'm going to give J.K. Rowling credit for being a great human being, but for anything, is she worked backwards, and then the stories evolved with the reader. And the movies also did that. You see, the first two movies are fun and whimsical, and it gets serious, but it's fun and whimsical. And by the end, it's, no, people die. We have to deal with loss. We have to deal with separation. We have to deal with being ripped from our friends. What's more important? All these different things of identity and crisis and all these different things. X-Men 97 still does that too. It just does it in a different way, where it grows up with its audience. It knows the main audience for this was the 5-year-old kid that sat in his house and begged to get a VHS tape of it. I remember taking birthday money and going, oh, Wolverine's on the cover of that VHS, I'm buying it. I had to buy it. And, there was a Silver Samurai episode on that VHS tape. There was a Nightcrawler episode on that tape. And one other episode, and it drives me crazy that I can't remember it. But there was 3 or 4 episodes of the X-Men on VHS that I had, because I had to buy it. I just loved the series. I loved the show. I was a Fox Kids kid, so I grew up with X-Men, Spider-Man, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Batman the Animated Series, all that kind of stuff. So what's super cool is this show, there are moments where as an adult you're like, it's a little kiddish for me. Because it's so well done that it's so well done evolving with you, where it takes you out of, whoa, look, Wolverine's got claws, and Gambit can make things explode with playing cards and all this kind of stuff. X-Men can shoot lasers out of his eyes. All these cool things that a kid loves about it. And then seeing the growth, taking that same audience that was there and goes, we're going to deal with loss. We're going to deal with grief. We're going to deal with coming of age. We're going to deal with personal identity struggles. Whether they be, having characters that are different nationalities, different sexual orientations, all these different things in the show. And we're going to grow with you, but still honor the legacy of what was before us. It's tremendously well done. And I really think it has that Toy Story 3-esque mold, growing with its audience, which I really, really appreciate. I think it's why it's such a success, in my opinion. So that is my full-on review, I guess, and my full-on gushing, almost an hour long, of X-Men 97. If you haven't watched it, and you've somehow, for some reason, listened to this spoiler-filled episode, thanks, I guess. You're doing yourself a disservice because you need to go watch it, which is readily available on Disney+. So go do that if you haven't done it. But if you have, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. And we need to keep bumping those streamers numbers up because apparently, quote unquote, it's performing not as well as they thought it was, or performing at a low rate, which I don't know how that's possible, especially because they completely teased an entire new season. But nonetheless, it's an absolute beauty, and it's a thing of art that fully encapsulates the beauty of the X-Men really, really well. I really appreciate it. So I hope you guys did as well. And if you want to appreciate stuff, I must ask you, head on over to the Etsy shop, guys. Go to ptecreative.etsy.com and go support an artist. If you love that piece of art that you saw watching X-Men 97, come on over and go buy some art for yourself over at ptecreative.etsy.com. Over there, you can find all bunch of cool things, including the new merch that we have. As you guys probably know, if you're on this channel or listening to this podcast, I have a bunch of heavy, awesome Pokemon-related content. And you can find that cool content right on Etsy.now. But we have more than just Pokemon, and I think pretty soon I'm going to be having some X-Men content on there as well, which is going to be really, really fun for me to showcase. But we've got Pokemon cards, we've got shirts, we've got the new sticker, the bug catcher theme. So just in time for spring and summer to turn over, we've got the awesome bug catcher shirt, the sticker, and the hoodies are on the way. Whether you like a zip-up hoodie or a full-on sweatshirt, they are coming your way with the bug catcher line, and it is going to be super cool and super fun. We got National Park stuff. We've got Harry Potter stuff. We've got our own little fashion line with the Hate to See It. We got football-related things. We got all kinds of stuff. You're a 90s kid that loves X-Men 97. You probably love Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I got a sticker for you right there, too. Go check it out at ptecreative.etsy.com. And if you go do that, use the promo code BLISS, BLISS, at checkout, and you're going to take 20% off your total order. So go do that as fast as you possibly can and support your boy. Just an artist trying to make it in this world, just like the X-Men are in their mutant-hating world that we all know and love. So, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment. Yeah. Share as much as possible. If you're on Spotify, leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. Check out the rest of our content Monday through Friday. We got all kinds of cool stuff there. Check out the other podcast on Thursday if you're a big football fan, and check out our socials for other cool things. All under PTE Creative. I have been your host, Evan Davies. It's been a joy as always, and I will see you next week for another episode of the ONETA Show, brought to you by PTE Creative. Peace.